In the heart of a forgotten town stood an orphanage that time itself seemed to have abandoned. Its walls were chipped, its windows broken, and its halls carried a silence so heavy it almost screamed. Yet, for those who dared to step inside, the silence was never empty, it was filled with whispers, faint and sorrowful, like the cries of children who had once lived there. The orphanage had been home to dozens of children, most of whom were left at its gates with no name, no history, and no one to love them. Life inside was harsh. Cold meals, strict rules, and nights filled with fear defined their existence. But what hurt the most was the loneliness, the feeling of being forgotten by the world. Some of the children grew up, left, and tried to move on, while others never made it past those walls, their lives cut short by illness, despair, or accidents no one cared to explain. One story that echoes strongest is that of a little boy named Daniel. He was barely 7, with wide eyes that held both innocence and sorrow. Daniel had been abandoned by his mother, who promised she would return but never did. Every night, he would sit by the cracked window, whispering to the wind, hoping his words would find her. The caretakers said he often spoke to friends no one else could see, friends who comforted him in the darkness. Then, one stormy night, Daniel vanished. The staff claimed he ran away, but no trace of him was ever found. To this day, visitors to the old orphanage swear they hear the faint cry of a child echoing through the halls. Some say they've seen a small figure standing at the window, waiting. Others have reported whispers so close to their ears that it feels like a plea for help. The orphanage has long been abandoned, but the whispers remain. They are not just ghostly echoes, they are the cries of forgotten souls, children who longed for love but received only silence. Their stories were never told, their dreams never fulfilled. Daniel's silent cry reminds us that behind every abandoned building, behind every forgotten wall, there may be voices that still yearn to be heard. Sometimes, history hides its deepest truths not in books, but in words never read. Deep inside a crumbling farmhouse in Virginia, a box of old letters was discovered, letters written by young soldiers during the Civil War. They were never delivered, never opened. Each envelope carried a story frozen in time, a final whisper of a soul long forgotten. The first letter was from a soldier named Samuel, only 19. He wrote to his mother, describing the muddy battlefields, the hunger that clawed at his body, and the fear that weighed heavier than his rifle. Yet, he tried to reassure her with lines of hope. When this is over, I will come home, and we will plant the apple tree together, just like you promised. Samuel never returned. His letter remained sealed, tucked away in that box, as if waiting for his voice to be heard more than a century later. Another letter was from a young man named Henry, written to the sweetheart he left behind. His words overflowed with love and longing. Your face gives me strength when the nights are long, and the cannons do not let us sleep. If I do not come back, know that I loved you with every breath. Henry's fate was sealed on the battlefield. His letter, never read by the woman he cherished, became a silent testimony of love cut short. The box contained dozens more, each one filled with hope, pain, and humanity. These were not just soldiers, they were sons, brothers, lovers, and dreamers. They wrote about home-cooked meals they missed, the laughter of siblings, and the warm embrace of family. But war stole those dreams, leaving their voices trapped on paper that no one was meant to see. Today, those letters stand as whispers of forgotten souls. When you read them, it feels as though the past reaches out to you, begging not to be erased. Each unopened envelope is more than just ink on paper, it is a heartbeat that once raced, a soul that once believed in tomorrow. And though those words were never delivered to the ones they were written for, they now speak to us, carrying stories the world almost lost. They remind us that even in silence, love and longing never truly fade. On the edge of a small town stood a mansion that locals whispered about but never dared to enter. Its tall, cracked pillars and weathered facade gave it the appearance of a house long forgotten, but those who passed by at night swore it was alive. Lights flickered in empty rooms, shadows crossed broken windows, and faint whispers carried through the air. They called it, the house that never slept. Generations had lived within its walls, each leaving behind stories of joy, tragedy, and secrets too dark to be spoken aloud. The house had seen laughter during grand parties, tears during times of loss, and rage during bitter arguments. Every emotion seemed to have sunk into its foundation, leaving behind an imprint that could never fade. One story that endured through time was of Eleanor, a woman who lived there in the early 1900s. She was known for her beauty, grace, and her love for music. Every evening she played the piano in the grand hall, filling the house with melodies that drifted into the night. But Eleanor's life was marked by sorrow. She waited endlessly for her husband, a sailor lost at sea, who never returned. Her grief consumed her, and one stormy evening, she was found lifeless beside the piano, her hands resting on the keys as though she had played until her final breath. Since that night, many claimed the piano played on its own, soft notes echoing through the empty house. Visitors reported hearing footsteps pacing in the upstairs corridor, doors opening and closing by themselves, and whispers that seemed to call their names. Some even said they saw Eleanor's silhouette near the piano, her eyes filled with longing, her lips moving as if whispering to someone unseen. But Eleanor was not alone. Other families who lived there left behind their own restless echoes, children who died young, servants who endured cruelty, and guests who never left after tragedy struck. Together, their stories blended into the haunting presence that gave the mansion its name. The house never slept because the souls within it never found peace. Each whisper, each flicker of light, was a reminder that the past does not vanish, it lingers, etched into the very walls. The house that never slept still stands, a monument to lives forgotten, yet never truly gone. In the autumn of 1923, a man known only as Jonathan passed through a quiet Midwestern town. He carried little more than a worn leather suitcase, a journal bound in cracked brown leather, and a presence that made people curious yet uneasy. He spoke kindly to strangers, tipped generously, and seemed always to be searching for something, or someone. But just as quickly as he appeared, Jonathan vanished, leaving behind only his suitcase and the diary that would become his whisper to the world. The journal revealed fragments of a restless soul. Its pages spoke of journeys across oceans, encounters with strangers in bustling cities, and dreams of finding a place where he finally belonged. Some entries hinted at a past he was running from, mistakes, regrets, and the shadow of someone he loved but lost. Others carried strange details about people he met who later seemed to disappear from records, as though they had never existed. One chilling entry read, "If I do not return, know that I was close, closer than ever before. The voices lead me, still, they say the answers wait beyond the bridge at midnight." That was the last page Jonathan ever wrote. Witnesses claimed to have seen him walking toward the old wooden bridge on the outskirts of town the night before his disappearance. A farmer passing by swore he saw Jonathan speaking to someone in the fog, though no one else was there. When morning came, the bridge was empty. No body, no belongings, Jonathan had simply ceased to exist. The townspeople searched, but all they found was his suitcase, tucked neatly beneath the bridge, as if placed there intentionally. Inside were only a few clothes and the journal. The case was closed, labeled a disappearance with, "No foul play suspected." But locals whispered of something else, something not of this world. To this day, travelers who cross that bridge at night claim to feel a sudden chill. Some hear faint footsteps behind them, while others say a man's voice whispers from the fog, "I am still searching." Jonathan's story became one of the great untold mysteries, a reminder that sometimes the most haunting journeys are not the ones we take across the earth, but the ones that never find their ending. There are places on earth where silence feels heavier than sound, where the air itself carries memories of pain. One such place lies on the outskirts of an old European village, where a battlefield once roared with gunfire, smoke, and cries of men who never returned home. Today, the grass has grown tall, the trees stand quiet, and the earth seems at peace. But those who walk the land after dusk know the truth: the battlefield is not silent. It still whispers. This was once the site of a brutal conflict, a clash that left thousands dead in a matter of days. Soldiers from opposing sides, young and old, fell where they stood. Many were never buried properly, their names erased from memory, their bodies swallowed by the earth. Locals believe their restless souls remain, tied forever to the soil where their blood was shed. Travelers who pass through at night tell unsettling stories. Some hear the faint sound of boots marching in unison, though no one is there. Others describe the sudden crack of gunfire in the distance, followed by desperate shouts that fade into the wind. A few even claim to have seen ghostly figures, men in tattered uniforms, their faces pale, their eyes empty, wandering the field as if still searching for a way home. One villager, an old man named Klaus, once shared his chilling experience. As a boy, he wandered too far into the field. The fog grew thick, and suddenly, he heard a voice whisper his name. Terrified, he ran, but not before glancing back and seeing a figure reaching out to him, hand trembling, lips moving as if pleading for help. Klaus never returned to the field again, but the memory haunted him for life. The echoes of the forgotten battlefield are not just sounds, they are reminders. Reminders that behind every war statistic were men with dreams, families, and voices that never had a chance to finish their stories. The ground may be covered in grass now, but beneath it lie whispers that refuse to be silenced. Some say if you stand there in complete stillness, you can hear a single word carried on the wind: remember. And perhaps, that is all the souls ever wanted, to not be forgotten.